My name is Nathan. I'm 38 years old, a software engineer by trade, and I've been married to Emily for 7 years. We met in college, both of us fresh-faced and idealistic, and our relationship blossomed from there. We had our share of challenges like any couple, but we were happy, or at least that's what I thought. Emily is the love of my life. I thought we had it all. She was intelligent, kind, and adventurous. Together, we built a life that I felt proud of. Our wedding was small but beautiful, and our honeymoon was spent in a quaint little cabin by the beach in Maine, our first vacation together as a married couple. It was a place I'd always remembered fondly. The ocean, the salty air, the long walks along the shore. Those were the moments when I felt like the world was at our feet. Lately, things hadn't been the same, though. I noticed little changes in Emily, things I couldn't quite put my finger on. She was spending more time away from home, longer hours at work, weekend trips with her friends. I didn't think much of it at first. She had a demanding job as a marketing executive, and I trusted her completely. But the distance between us seemed to grow with every passing day. I didn't know what was happening, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I was at home one afternoon, working from my office on a project, when Emily left for what she called a girls' weekend. She had mentioned it briefly the week before, something about a small getaway with some old friends from college. I told her to have fun and gave her a quick kiss goodbye. But I couldn't shake the nagging feeling in my gut that something wasn't quite right. I brushed it off as paranoia, but deep down, I knew I had to trust my instincts. After Emily left, I decided to clean up a bit around the house. There were some old boxes in the closet that I'd been meaning to go through, filled with old photographs and keepsakes from our travels and early years together. The box sat in the corner of the closet, collecting dust. As I opened it, memories flooded back. Our first trip together, our wedding day, and countless other moments we had captured in photos. I smiled, flipping through the pictures, remembering how simple life seemed back then. But then, my fingers stilled on one photo. It was an image of Emily standing on the beach, smiling brightly. The photo was taken on our honeymoon, the same spot where we had spent our first days as a married couple. It was a picture I had always treasured. I smiled as I looked at it, but something wasn't right. In the background of the picture, I saw a man standing beside her, his arm draped over her shoulder, smiling in the same direction as her. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light, or maybe a reflection from someone else in the distance. But then I noticed the subtle details, the way his hand rested on her shoulder, the closeness between them. He wasn't just a random figure in the background. It looked like they were together. I stared at the photo for a long time, a sinking feeling growing in my stomach. I quickly pulled out the rest of the pictures from the same trip, my hands shaking as I flipped through them. And there they were again, more photos of Emily with this man. At first, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. How could I have missed this? Why hadn't I noticed before? They were always together in the photos, laughing, standing side by side, with their bodies pressed closer than friends would be. In some pictures, they were even holding hands. My heart dropped as I realized what I was looking at. I had never seen this man before in my life. He wasn't one of her friends, and he certainly wasn't someone I'd met during our honeymoon. I stood there frozen, my mind racing. What was going on? Why had she never mentioned him? Why were these pictures here, in a box of memories that should have been filled with just the two of us? I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. The more I looked at the photos, the more questions flooded my mind. Who was he? Why had Emily kept him a secret? Was there something more to their relationship than I had known? I tried to push the thoughts away, but the doubts had already taken root. I had to know the truth. I had to confront her. But how? How could I bring it up without sounding like I was accusing her of something? How could I trust anything she had said to me after this? I put the photos back in the box, feeling a sense of dread wash over me. I didn't know what was going on, but I knew I couldn't ignore this. The woman I had trusted, the woman I had shared my life with, had hidden something from me. Something big. And I had no idea how deep it went. As the day wore on, I found myself pacing the house, replaying the images in my mind over and over again. My head was spinning, and I felt like I was suffocating. I wanted to call Emily to confront her right then and there, but something held me back. I wasn't sure I was ready to hear the truth, whatever that might be. But one thing was clear. I had to find out more. I had to uncover what was really going on. And I wasn't going to rest until I knew the whole story. I spent the rest of that day in a daze, unable to focus on anything other than the photos. The thought of Emily, the woman I had trusted with my heart, sharing intimate moments with someone else was too much to bear. Every time I tried to push it out of my mind, the images came rushing back. Her smiling face, the way she looked at him, the closeness between them. I couldn't shake the feeling that my world was falling apart, piece by piece. That evening, Emily texted me. She was at her friend's house and they were out for dinner. Her message was casual, as if everything was normal between us, as if I hadn't spent the entire day unraveling the threads of our marriage. She told me she'd be home late and that she was having a great time. I wanted to respond, to ask her about the pictures, to demand an explanation, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Not yet. Instead, I did what I had to do. I started searching. I dug through old emails, photos, and anything else I could get my hands on, hoping to find some clue that would give me more answers. The longer I searched, the more questions I had. How had I not noticed this man before? Was I really this blind to what was happening under my nose? I pulled up her social media accounts, scrolling through her posts, looking for any mention of him. And then I found it. A photo from the same vacation spot. This time, it wasn't just Emily and this man, but the two of them with their arms around each other, smiling into the camera. The caption read, "Another beautiful day at our favorite place. Can't believe how much fun we're having. Memories, Masha vacation mode." My heart sank as I stared at the photo. It was from the same location where we had spent our honeymoon. The same beach, the same sunsets. How could she have gone back there, with him, without saying anything to me? Was this some kind of joke? Or worse, was this an affair that had been going on for longer than I had realized? I needed to know more about him. Who was this man, and how had he become so close to Emily? I pulled up the picture again, zooming in on his face, hoping to catch a detail that might give me some insight into his identity. But I couldn't find anything. No name in the caption, no tags, nothing. I kept scrolling through the posts, my stomach in knots, until I found something that made my blood run cold. A comment on one of the pictures. It was from Emily's personal trainer, the same man I had seen in the photos. The comment read, "You're looking incredible as always. Wish I could be there with you. Hope to see you again soon." Or memories. I froze. He was her personal trainer? I had heard her mention him a few times, but I had no idea they were this close. She'd always told me he was just helping her with her fitness goals. But this was something more. I couldn't ignore the implications anymore. There was no way this was just about fitness. I sat back in my chair, feeling the weight of everything crashing down on me. I needed to know who he was, what kind of relationship they had. I couldn't wait any longer. I had to confront Emily. But as I sat there looking at the screen, my mind started to race. What if I was wrong? What if I was jumping to conclusions? What if this was just a misunderstanding? I tried to talk myself down, but the nagging feeling in my gut wouldn't let me. I couldn't shake the thought that there was something going on between them, something Emily hadn't told me about. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces, her and him, smiling together, side by side. Every time I thought about it, the anger grew inside me, mixing with hurt and confusion. How could she do this? Why would she keep this from me? When Emily came home later that night, I was still awake, sitting in the living room, my mind spinning with everything I had discovered. She walked in, a little tipsy from wine, but as soon as she saw me sitting there in the dark, the smile on her face faded. She knew something was wrong. "Hey, Nate," she said, her voice a little shaky. "What's going on? You okay?" I looked at her, trying to steady my breath, trying to calm the storm inside me. "We need to talk, Emily," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "About the photos, about everything." Her eyes widened, and for a moment, she didn't say anything. She simply stared at me, her face draining of color. I don't know what you're talking about, she said quietly, though I could see the hesitation in her eyes. Don't lie to me, Emily, I said, standing up. My voice was firm, but my chest was tight with emotion. I saw the pictures, the ones with him, the ones from the same place where we honeymooned. What's going on between you and this guy? Emily's face faltered, her eyes shifting nervously. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words seemed to get caught in her throat. I waited, my heart pounding in my chest, bracing for whatever she would say next. There was a long, painful silence as I stood there, waiting for Emily to answer. Her eyes flickered away from mine, and for a moment, she looked like she might collapse under the weight of her own guilt. I could feel the tension between us, thick, suffocating. I could see that she knew I knew something, but I didn't know if she was ready to admit the truth. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Nathan, She stopped, swallowed hard, and looked at me with an expression I couldn't place. I didn't want you to find out like this. I didn't want you to know. I clenched my fists at my sides, trying to keep my composure. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but I couldn't. I needed the truth, not excuses. I've seen the pictures, Emily. I've seen what's been happening, and I need you to tell me everything. Right now. She flinched at my words, her shoulders sagging with a mix of defeat and fear. She took a step back, as though trying to distance herself from the reality of the situation. Nathan, please, just let me explain. I shook my head, my anger rising. Explain what? That you've been keeping secrets from me? That you've been seeing another man? I don't even know who he is, Emily. How long has this been going on? She wiped her eyes, her face pale, her expression full of regret. I never meant for this to happen. It just did. She paused, struggling to find the words. His name is Adam. I met him at the gym a few months ago. He's my personal trainer. I nodded, trying to hold back the bitterness in my voice. I figured that much out. But what I don't understand is how you went from working with him on your fitness goals to this. A full-blown affair. Emily bit her lip, her face flushing with embarrassment. It wasn't supposed to happen, Nathan. At first, it was just about working out. He was helping me with my training, pushing me harder than I ever had before, and I started spending more time with him, talking about everything, things I didn't even realize I was missing in my life. I felt good, like I was finally being seen. I didn't feel like I was just your wife anymore. The pain in my chest tightened as I listened to her words. So that's what this is about? You felt invisible? You felt like I wasn't enough? No, Emily said quickly, shaking her head. It's not that, it's just, I've been feeling disconnected for a while. I don't know when things changed, but with Adam I felt alive again. He made me feel like I mattered, like I was more than just the person I was when I was with you. I felt the weight of her words, and it cut deeper than I had expected. It wasn't just the affair, it was the realization that she had been emotionally distant from me for so long that she found solace in someone else. I had failed her, but at the same time, she had failed me. Is that all it was, Emily? You needed to feel good about yourself again, I asked, my voice breaking with frustration. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been lying to me, hiding this from me. You didn't just want attention, you wanted something else. She was silent for a long moment, her eyes filled with tears, her hands shaking. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely audible. It was more than that. I started to develop feelings for him. And then, one thing led to another. I didn't know how to stop. I didn't know how to face you and tell you what was happening. The admission hung in the air like a weight, crushing everything around us. I had suspected something for a while, but hearing her confirm it made everything real. She had betrayed me. And for what? To feel wanted again? To fill some empty space that I hadn't even known was there? I don't know how to forgive you for this, Emily, I said, my voice trembling with the anger and hurt that had been building inside me. How do I move on from something like this? How do I trust you again? Her eyes filled with more tears as she stepped closer to me. But I couldn't bring myself to let her touch me. I couldn't let her in, not after everything she'd done. I don't expect you to forgive me, Nathan. I don't. But I love you. I'm so sorry. I made the biggest mistake of my life. and I'll do anything to fix it, to make things right again. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that she was truly sorry, that this was just a moment of weakness, a mistake that could be fixed. But the doubt lingered, gnawing at me. How could I trust her? How could I go back to what we had when everything had been tainted? I need time, I said, my voice quieter now, almost resigned. I need time to think. I can't make any decisions right now. Emily nodded, her face crumpling with emotion. I understand. I'll give you as much time as you need. But please know, Nathan, that I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. I love you. I couldn't respond. I couldn't tell her whether I believed her or not, because deep down, I wasn't sure what the truth was anymore. My heart wanted to forgive her, but my mind kept returning to the images, the photos of her with him, the intimacy between them that I had never known. I didn't know how to move forward from this. I didn't know if I could. As she turned away and walked toward the bedroom, I stood frozen, staring at the empty space between us. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. The trust we had built was shattered, and I didn't know if it was even possible to rebuild. The silence in the house was deafening after Emily left the room. I stood there for what felt like hours, unsure of what to do next. The weight of her confession had settled deep in my chest, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't push away the images, the pictures of her with him, the smiles they shared, the intimacy that was no longer just a fleeting thought in my mind, but a permanent scar in my memory. I tried to focus on anything else. The TV played in the background, but I wasn't watching. The kitchen light flickered, and I should have cared, but I didn't. I tried to open the book I'd been reading, but the words didn't make sense. Every part of me was consumed with the thoughts of what had happened, what I was supposed to do now. Could I trust her again? Could we move past this? I grabbed my phone and started scrolling through my contacts. I thought about calling a friend, someone I could talk to, someone who could help me make sense of this. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. What would I say? How could I explain the betrayal without sounding like a fool? How could I explain the sinking feeling in my stomach, the anxiety that gripped me every time I thought of Emily and him? I sat on the couch, my phone in my hand, unsure of where to go from here. I thought about confronting Adam, going to the gym, finding him, and demanding answers. But I knew that wouldn't solve anything. The truth was, I didn't know if confronting him or Emily would make me feel better. It didn't change what had already happened. It didn't take away the betrayal, the fact that my wife, the person I trusted most in this world, had chosen someone else. My mind wandered back to our honeymoon. The trip was supposed to be a celebration of our new life together, a promise of the future. But now it felt tainted. I couldn't stop thinking about the photos, the way she had gone back to that place with him. Was it because the memories we had there weren't enough anymore? Did she need something more to feel complete? I was so lost in thought that I didn't hear Emily come back into the room. I didn't notice her approach until she was standing in front of me, her eyes swollen from crying. Nathan, she said quietly, her voice hesitant, please look at me. I didn't want to. I didn't want to look at her, to see the woman who had lied to me, who had betrayed me. But I knew I had to. I knew I needed to face this, even if I didn't know how. I looked up at her, my heart heavy. The tears in her eyes were genuine, and for a moment I wanted to believe that she was truly sorry. But the wound she had caused was still fresh, and I couldn't just forget it. I'm so sorry, Nathan, she whispered, her voice trembling. I know I can't take back what I did. I can't undo the hurt I've caused you, but I need you to know that I love you. I never wanted to destroy what we had. Please, please don't give up on us. Her words cut through me, and for a moment I was paralyzed by the weight of them. I wanted to forgive her. I wanted to believe that we could fix this, that we could somehow move past this betrayal. But I didn't know how. You don't get it, Emily, I said, my voice strained, the anger I had been holding back spilling over. You don't get what this does to me. You don't get what it does to us. I trusted you. I loved you. And you went behind my back. You shared something with him that was supposed to be mine, and now everything is broken. I stood up, pacing the room, trying to make sense of everything. I don't know how to get past this. I don't know how to look at you and not think about what you did. I know, she whispered, stepping closer. I know I've hurt you more than I can explain. But I'm begging you, Nathan, please give me a chance to make it right. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll go to therapy. I'll cut ties with Adam. I'll do whatever you need. I stopped pacing, turning to face her. But what about you? What do you need, Emily? Because it's obvious that you've been looking for something more. You've been getting what you needed from him. And I don't know if I can compete with that. I don't know if I can give you what he's been giving you. She looked down at the floor, her face full of shame. It wasn't about him, Nathan. I thought I needed something more. But I was wrong. I was looking for validation, for attention. But I see now that I should have been looking within myself, not in someone else's arms. I've hurt you, I know that, but I'm willing to do the hard work to fix it. I felt a wave of frustration rise up in me. I don't even know where to start. I don't know how to forgive you. I don't know if I can trust you again. Emily reached for my hand, but I stepped back. Please, she begged, her voice breaking. Please don't give up on me. Don't give up on us. I stood there, my mind racing. I had spent the last few days questioning everything. Our relationship, my own judgment, my place in this marriage. I didn't know how to go back to the way things were. I didn't know if I could, but I also didn't know if I was ready to walk away. I need time, I said finally, my voice quieter. I need space to think about this. I can't make any decisions right now. I can't live like this. But I can't just walk away either. I need time to figure out if I can forgive you, if I can ever trust you again. Emily nodded, her face full of relief and regret. I'll give you the time you need, Nathan. I'll wait. I'll do anything to show you how sorry I am. As she turned to leave, I sank back into the chair, my heart heavy. The weight of this decision pressed down on me, and I didn't know how I could carry it. For the first time in a long time, I felt lost. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for certain. I had to make the hardest decision of my life. The days that followed were the hardest I'd ever experienced. Emily gave me the space I'd asked for, and in that silence, my mind grew more and more chaotic. I'd spent the better part of our marriage believing that we had something strong, something unbreakable. But now all I had were fragments of that belief, scattered and broken. I didn't know how to fill the empty spaces between us. The house felt cold without the usual laughter and warmth. Emily tried to stay busy, going to work, spending time with her friends, but we both knew things had shifted. She didn't know what to do, and neither did I. I spent my days at work, but even then, I couldn't concentrate. My thoughts kept drifting back to the images. Those pictures from the honeymoon, the comments on social media, her emotional distance over the past few months. Every time I tried to focus on something else, her face and the memory of her betrayal crept in, making it hard to breathe. I had been avoiding seeing her, not out of anger, but out of fear. Fear that if I looked into her eyes again, I would see the same guilt, the same remorse, and it would tear me apart. Part of me wanted to forgive her. I wanted to believe that we could fix this, that we could move forward. But there was another part of me that didn't know if I could ever trust her again. The fact that she had hidden this affair for so long, the fact that she had built a life with me while secretly sharing herself with someone else, it was too much. A week had passed since our conversation, and the silence between us felt unbearable. I hadn't made any decisions, but I knew that I couldn't keep living in this limbo. I needed to know whether I could forgive her or if it was time to let go. That Saturday, I decided to take a walk. I needed to clear my head, and the cold air outside was a welcome distraction from the swirling thoughts in my mind. I walked through the neighborhood, my feet moving mechanically, as if my body was on autopilot. The sounds of children playing, the rustling of leaves in the trees, all of it felt distant. Everything felt distant. I could hear my heart beating loudly in my chest, and I tried to slow down, to focus on something else. But nothing would stop the questions that kept echoing in my mind. As I walked, I realized that I couldn't keep avoiding the decision forever. I had to face the reality of what Emily and I were now. There was no going back to the way things were, no pretending that the trust wasn't broken. But could I rebuild that trust? Could I find a way to forgive her? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I was terrified of the answer. The idea of moving on from Emily was like tearing apart a piece of my soul. I had invested so much into our relationship, so much of myself, that I didn't know who I would be without her. But if I stayed, would I always be looking over my shoulder, wondering if she would betray me again? When I returned home, I found Emily sitting on the couch, her eyes tired and her face pale. She had been waiting for me, but she didn't know what to say, didn't know how to bridge the chasm that had formed between us. I saw the desperation in her eyes, and a part of me wanted to run toward her, to fix everything, to make it okay again. But I couldn't. I stood in the doorway for a moment, unsure of what to say. "Emily," I finally said, my voice quieter than I intended. "I've been thinking." She looked up at me, her face full of anticipation. "Nathan, I understand if you need more time, but I'm ready. I'm willing to do anything to make this right." I nodded slowly, trying to process the enormity of the decision I was about to make. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Emily. I don't know if I can ever trust you again." Her face crumpled, and I saw the tears well up in her eyes. "I know I've hurt you, and I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't deserve to have you in my life after what I've done. But please, I love you. I'm so sorry." I didn't know how to respond. The words caught in my throat. I loved her too. I couldn't imagine my life without her, but I also knew that love wasn't enough to fix everything. Trust was the foundation of any relationship, and that foundation had crumbled beneath us. "I need to know that this won't happen again," I said, my voice steady, though my heart was racing. "I need to know that you're committed to making this work, and that this won't happen again. And I need time. I need time to figure out if I can forgive you, if I can trust you again." Emily nodded, wiping her eyes, and stood up. "I understand. I'll give you all the time you need, Nathan. I won't rush you. But please, know that I'm here, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes." I looked at her, taking in her words, but I still couldn't shake the doubt. Could we rebuild this? Could I ever see her the same way again? The road ahead was uncertain, and I wasn't sure I had the strength to walk it. "I'll let you know when I'm ready to talk," I said, my voice softer now. "But right now, I just need some space." Emily nodded, her face filled with sorrow and regret. "I understand. Take all the time you need, Nathan. I'll wait." She turned to leave, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just about time. It was about healing, about rebuilding what had been broken. I didn't know if I could do it, but I knew I couldn't keep living in the past. I had to make a decision. It had been several weeks since Emily and I had had that conversation. The silence between us had grown more comfortable, if only because we had learned to coexist in the aftermath of everything. I had taken the time I needed, but every passing day only made the decision harder. The emotional toll of the betrayal still hung over me like a shadow, and no matter how hard I tried to convince myself that I was okay, I wasn't. I was fractured, uncertain, and unsure of what to do next. Every time I looked at Emily, I saw the pain in her eyes, the guilt, the shame. I couldn't help but feel that she was the same woman I had married, and yet she wasn't. She had changed in ways I couldn't ignore, and no matter how much I loved her, I wasn't sure I could ever go back to the way things were. I spent the last few weeks doing what I thought was best, avoiding confrontation, keeping my distance, giving myself space to think. But the truth was, I had been running from the inevitable. The question that had plagued me for weeks still lingered. Can I forgive her? I woke up that morning, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on me. Emily was still asleep in the bedroom, and for a moment I considered sneaking out for a walk, trying to avoid the inevitable. But I knew I couldn't keep postponing it. I had to face it head on. I found her in the kitchen, sitting at the table, a cup of coffee in her hands. She looked up at me, her eyes still filled with the hope that I had seen in them from the very beginning. She had been patient, waiting for me to make up my mind, but I could feel her anxiety simmering beneath the surface. She was scared, and so was I. "I've been thinking," I said, my voice steady but laced with uncertainty, "about everything, about us, and I think it's time we talk." Emily's face softened, and she set her cup down on the table, leaning forward as if she had been waiting for this moment. "I'm listening," she said quietly, her voice tinged with vulnerability. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside me. This was the hardest thing I had ever done, but I knew it was the right thing to do. I'm not going to lie, Emily. What you did, what we went through, it's broken me. It's changed everything. I can't go back to the way things were. I can't erase what happened. Emily's face fell, her hand reaching for mine, but I pulled away, needing space, needing to gather my thoughts. But I also can't keep living in this purgatory either, I continued. I can't keep pretending that everything is okay when it's not. And I can't live in this constant state of doubt, not knowing whether or not I can trust you. Tears welled up in her eyes and she looked down, her voice barely audible. I know I've hurt you. I don't deserve forgiveness. I don't deserve a second chance. But please, Nathan, I love you. I made a mistake. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. I looked at her for a long time, weighing her words, the pain in her voice, and the memories of everything we had been through. I thought about the life we had shared, the years of laughter, the quiet moments, the adventures. It was hard to imagine that all of it could just end because of one mistake. But was it just one mistake? Or had this been building up for longer than I realized? I don't know if I can ever forgive you, I said, my voice breaking slightly. But I'm willing to try. I'm willing to give us a chance, but it's going to take time. It's going to take more than just words, more than just promises. It's going to take work, Emily. Her face lit up, but I could see the weight of my words sinking in. She understood that this wasn't going to be easy, that this wasn't just going to magically fix itself. I'll do whatever it takes, she said, her voice filled with determination. I'll prove to you that I'm committed, that I'm here for you, that I'm willing to fight for us. I took a deep breath, my heart heavy with the weight of the decision I had just made. I'm willing to try, Emily, but I need you to understand that this doesn't mean everything will be okay right away. It's going to take time. It's going to take trust, and I don't know how long it will take for me to get that back. She nodded, her eyes filled with gratitude, but also with the understanding that the road ahead would not be easy. I know, Nathan, I know. I'll wait for as long as it takes. I'll do whatever it takes. I stood there for a moment, feeling the gravity of what had just transpired between us. The decision I had made wasn't easy, but it was the only one I could make. I loved her, but I couldn't ignore the reality of what had happened. And while I didn't know if we could rebuild, I knew that I had to try. For us, for the life we had shared. Emily stood up and walked over to me, her hand reaching for mine, and this time I didn't pull away. I took her hand, feeling the warmth of her touch, but also the weight of the journey ahead of us. I'm not sure where this will take us, Emily, I said softly, but I'm willing to walk that road with you, if you're willing to walk it with me. She squeezed my hand, her voice filled with hope. I will. I'm not going to give up on us. And as we stood there together, I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know if we would ever fully heal, if we would ever fully trust each other again. But I knew one thing for sure. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one where forgiveness and rebuilding were possible. And for the first time in a long time, I had hope.